as an SD2, and prior to that, I worked with Arcesium as a senior software engineer, and my first company was Optum. So I have around 7.5 years of experience and have taken at least I look for in the candidate, and at least a couple of other interviewers feel the same way. Okay, so that's the agenda for it. And then we'll discuss or any questions that you guys have, and we'll take it one by one and try to answer it as much as possible. Okay. Yeah. So let me share my screen. Piece of the startup circle, right? Eventually, what happens is that how exactly big company sees is that data structures and algorithm is something which every student knows, right, or learns, right, or have at least gone through it during his period. That's the fundamental thing. Now, so to basically go into interviews, there are a lot of things that you should keep in mind, right? If someone throws you a problem, an interviewer throws you a problem, it's not that you start solving everything and you get it done and things will be all good, right? So imagine a use case or imagine a question standards that I should follow, right? So that's what we are going to talk about, right? Before you solve into the problem or before you throws you a problem, right? You have to basically understand the problem, right? Now, in a very simple term, if say suppose I gave you a problem, find the longest substring without repeating characters, right? I hope everyone is aware of what exactly substring is. If not, I'll quickly brief it. For example, you have been given a string A, B, C, right? The substring here will be A, B, A, B, C, B, C, and all these things, right? Now, what is the length of what you will do? You will start coding solution as soon as possible, right? And that's the biggest mistake, right? Because you might have solved with some simple test cases. This is the target, you return okay, this is the position on which the value is. That's the brute force. And then once you give them the interview, then interviewer says, okay, yeah, this looks fine, can we try to optimize it? Then you can basically think of, or if you have the solution, you can think of, in this case you can optimize it using a hash map, right? You basically store or you compute all those values here and try to check whether the target minus array of I or whatever iteration is there is present in the hash map or not, or some other mechanism, right? So start with brute force, okay, and then work towards the optimized solution. Okay. Sometimes if you are giving a online test assessment, right, brute force might pass you that thing, right? So why to waste time? If you have 5 questions, why to waste time in optimizing the first question itself? A brute force also works sometimes. So if you see the constraint, right, see the constraint. Sometimes the constraint will give you a hint that brute force will work. Now, this was for of an interview, but if you are going in online assessment or something, you have 10 questions, sometimes a brute force can also pass it through. Right? That's why I always say start with brute force. Don't spend too much of time immediately on optimization solution. Start with brute force and then think on it. This will also buy you some time actually, right? That okay, while you are picking up the brute force and at the back of the mind, you are thinking of the optimized solution as well. Okay, that's the second thing. Third, which is sometimes I feel is most important, and we as an engineer always forget this, right? Think aloud. Okay. Now I'll tell you the problem, right? I gave you a problem as an interviewer. You came to me with you're just sitting here and doing this thinking like this, okay, and then writing something, and then suddenly says, okay, yeah, this is something I have to write. No, problem is that you might write things, you might explain things, right? But if you have a complex, if you feel that, or if you get a question which you don't immediately know how to approach, right? So first of all, you might be thinking of some approach, right? Maybe thinking of, okay, this algorithm, can I apply this algorithm? Okay, can I choose this data structure or not, right? Now if you basically articulate your thoughts or whatever you're thinking, if you can speak out loud in front of interviewer, right, and see, okay, yeah, I'm trying this approach, okay, this example, this algorithm, this is can this work, okay, this will go like this. You have to articulate your thoughts very cleanly, such that if say suppose if your reasoning or whatever you're thinking is going good, interviewer will nod that okay, yeah, yes, yes, this is going fine, right? If interviewer sees that okay, you're going in wrong direction, they will provide you hints, right? Remember that engineering is collaborative in nature, and so is interview, right? It's not that I'll throw you a problem and I expect you to solve everything independently, which is fine. I expect that. But at the same time, if you're stuck, that's my responsibility to guide you. Okay, I can't leave you in the dark room without any help, right? Because engineering also doesn't work out. So any good interviewer will basically try to listen what exactly you are thinking, right? And then try to articulate you as well in the right direction if you are going in wrong direction. So thinking aloud is something which I always tell, even if I'm taking an interview, I'll say, okay, my expectation is that whatever you are thinking, just speak out loud so that I can also understand what's your thought process and I can judge you on that thought process, that how exactly he is thinking, she is thinking, right? Because if I give the same thing as a problem statement in my company or the my team on which I am hiring, I would expect the same process that this guy is thinking out loud, this guy is discussing with their peers, okay, and then taking a final call, right? So it's a collaborative in nature, and that's what we have to do. Remember that. Okay. Third, optimize for time and space. Yes, that's the fundamental thing. Once you have come with the brute force approach, you are thinking of the loud, then you come up with an optimal approach, right? So what happens is that you have a brute force solution, right? And then you see, okay, this is a bottleneck, right? And interviewer will try to say, okay, can we optimize it? Now, if interviewer will says that, can you optimize it? So basically, you have a brute force algorithm. You will try to see, or you have to try to see the problem statement, right? What exactly this problem statement talks about, right? Uh, I am iterating it two times. For example, can I reduce it from two iteration to one iteration? So if you think in that direction, right, you might hit that, okay, can I use some kind of a two pointer technique instead of iterating, two separate loops? Can I do two pointer in the single loop? Will it work? Okay. Can I try to apply some binary search algorithms on the solution array, or you can say the array which is sorted? Or can I try some kind of a, sliding window technique, right? Or can I use advanced technique called dynamic programming, right? So try to analyze all these things, right? While you are trying to optimize, you have to different thoughts, different algorithms there, right? You try to see whether this algorithm fits into my question or not, right? Normally, what happens, if you have solved quality problems of each topics, right? Quality problems can be done for dynamic programming. You have solved five questions. Not solved if you dynamic programming is trickier compared to other, right? So you might need to solve 15, 20 questions. While stacks or linked list might be easier for you, you would be solving just four or five problems, four or five quality problems, and that would be it, right? Now, if you solve these many problems, eventually you would be able to grasp that, okay, what is the optimal data structures or the optimal algorithms that we are going to use in the algorithm or in the question that is thrown to you during the time of interview, right? So from the practice, basically, it automatically gives you a hint, okay, this algorithm or this technique can be applied, right? So practice is the key. Practice, practice, practice. If you practice it, you will be able to very quickly figure it out which algorithm, is more applicable in this particular question, right? If not, then you have to basically try to adjust every algorithm and data structures, right? That should be applied here, and you have to discard. Okay, this algorithm is not getting fulfilled because it will violate this edge case or this test case, right? So it's important. Why? Because if you have solved the problem, there are 10 people who have solved the problem in a similar fashion. But if you can't optimize it and some other one has optimized it, she is the clear winner. Okay. So after all the three tricks, right, you have to optimize for time and space. Even not just time, you have to think of the space complexity as well. If you're using five different arrays, five different lists, right, try to use one, maybe two, maybe in complexity, space complexity, to always, focus on that aspect that, okay, you would be able to derive the time and space complexity from the algorithm that you are thinking. Okay, that is something which you have to know it. So knowing the time complexity of the various algorithm and the data structure is very beneficial and very important at the same time. Okay. Now, this is something which I personally want the candidate to do, but I haven't seen a lot of the candidates following this. Right, that is the right, clean, and readable code. What I mean by is that, in a very simple term, right? If say suppose you are you have been asked to given an input n, find the Fibonacci number for at this position, right? Find the third Fibonacci number, fourth Fibonacci number. I don't want to use some variables called int I is equals to 0, j is equals to 0, right? That's not meaningful. Don't use something like int a, int b, int temp. Use some descriptive name, right? If you are using I, j, if you are using two pointers, I you are using for left side and j you are using for the right side. Use left pointer, right pointer. If you want to store the current maximum, you will use current max, right? Rather than just using max, right? Or some random result or something. Okay. So use some meaningful name as and when you want. Use a meaningful, write a meaningful function name slash method name. What exactly is the intended, right? So longest, similar example, longest substring. You have to basically write as, okay, longest substring, that's thing, right? Find longest substring without repeated characters. That's the complete function. Okay. That's the fundamental thing, right? And also at the same time, if you see that you have to write a lot of codes, right? For example, you are applying some algorithm, binary search algorithm, right? So keep that algorithm as a separate function and call that algorithm from your main function. Don't try to club everything in single function, right? That's what the code modularity means. Okay. If a binary search, you can use binary search. Why I'm saying is that, for example, you would be using binary search in your industry world, right? Now that algorithm is something which is generic, which can be used at multiple places, right? Now you don't want to write the same algorithm again and again in each and every file. Okay. That's what you want to abstract it out, or you want to keep it as a separate class or separate utility, right? And that's what readable or modular code means, or reuse the existing code wherever possible. So if you have some algorithm which define, keep it as a separate function and then call that function from your, main function, whatever you have created, which has the fundamental logic, right? But the core algorithm logic, try to separate it out. Okay. Now, if you are not sure, write the pseudocode first to get the clarity and then jump into that. You can buy time from the interviewer. Okay, I'll just take 2 minutes or 5 minutes to write my thoughts as a pseudocode, and then I'll basically jump into the actual code. Okay, that is the fundamental thing. You have to write the clean and readable code. Don't write some very ugly variables I, J, and all these things. That doesn't make sense, because in production, no engineer will let your code review go it. They can, right? They can if it's very critical, but if you will be judged on different parameters, like in Amazon and other thing, there are different leadership principles, right? Insist on high standards and all these things, right? So sometimes if manager reaches out to your senior engineers and something, they can flag it out. Oh, he is writing code, he's doing good, but his code standards are not up to the mark, right? So red flag, right? Your hike will be reduced. Something along those lines can happen, right? So it's always good to basically write clean and readable code, right? Everything what I'm saying boils down to from what I have learned from the industry and what exactly senior engineers or normal engineers expects you to do, right? That's the fundament. That's the trick five, right? Clean and readable code. Sixth is handle edge cases early. That's the very fundamental thing, right? So for example, right? If say suppose I gave you to find the median, I hope median is everyone is aware of median terms. It's a mathematical terms, right? Mean, median, mode. Okay. So find median of two sorted arrays. If I ask you this question, that's all. Find median of two sorted arrays, right? So possible things, what you can do, you will start solving the question. Maybe you will ask some clarifying question, and then you will basically, think of brute force solution. Then you will write the code, right? And then basically you'll write a clean and readable code, right? But the fundamental thing is you have to think, or you have to basically ask, okay, what will happen in this scenario, right? For example, in the same case, median of two sorted arrays, right? Now you can fairly assume that, okay, both arrays will have the same size, but that's not the case. You can't assume that. Okay, so you have to think of the case where the two arrays, right, on which you have to apply the median, is of unequal length, right? That's one particular scenario, or you can say one of the edge cases, right? Then other thing can be, okay, one array has a lot of elements, another array has zero elements. Then what will happen? Okay. Third, both elements has just one single both array has just one single element, or one array has 10 elements, another array has one element. Okay, right? And both arrays are empty, right? So you have to think of all these scenarios, like null values. Will it have negative values, right? uh, what is the size of the number, maximum size of the number in this values, right? Length of the array, right? Empty arrays, single element, boundary condition. You have to basically upfront think before even starting the solution. You have to think of all these. Okay, is this a valid scenario? If you think it's a valid scenario, just tell interviewer, okay, I'm assuming that this is also the case. Or if you think that it might be an assumption, you basically state your assumption upfront. That okay, hey, to the interviewer, I'm thinking in this particular way. Is this the right assumption to make or not? Okay, that's the important thing. So you have to basically clarify those things upfront, whatever it takes, right? So just like the example I gave, right? Two sorted, the median of the two sorted arrays. You have to think whether what is this, there can be two unequal arrays as well, right? One array can be empty as well, another array can have just one value. Both arrays can be empty as well. What should we should do, right? If you think, you have something in your mind like, okay, if both are empty, what should I return? Should I return -1? You should clarify this with the interviewer as well. That's what I'm thinking. Edge cases thinking is something which you should start thinking from the very beginning, right? Obviously there will be edge cases which you might encounter while solving the problem, right, which is okay, I will say, right? But thinking early as possible is very beneficial. That will give you an idea how to solve a problem or how to approach a problem. Okay, that's very important. Okay, now next is tester solution, right? So what happens is that if say suppose you have come to this point of time and then you will say, hey, my algorithm is ready, and you will say interviewer that, okay, hey, this is the solution, you can check it out. Before doing that, you have to basically test your solution. You have to dry run your solution. Okay, dry run means second as example input, right? It can be, for example, if you have a binary search, if you have to implement a binary search algorithm, right? You can start with a simple sorted array to test whether your algorithm is working or not. Okay, take an example 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. You have to test your solution. Okay, what am I doing? Is there any miss? Is there any miss in if condition, if else condition? Is there any miss in some conditional check less than equals to greater than equals to any miss anywhere, right? That's what something you have to do it. So you have to test your solution beforehand before telling the interviewer that, hey, I am done. Okay, because the problem is if I check your code, right? And assuming that you have tested, I will ask you to dry run the code, right? Now, if I ask you to dry run the code, right, and then you strangled or you somehow basically stuck into one condition that you have written, right? And you realize that, okay, this is something which is not working, right? That gives the interviewer that, hey, it's a red flag that this guy will not test his her code, and they will directly raise a CR or push into the production, which can hamper the quality of the product, right? So that's where you have the thing is that you have to test your code by yourself first before reaching out to the interviewer that, hey, I'm done. Okay, that will give them the confidence, right? Or you that will give you the confidence that I have clear, I have whatever I have thought of, I am able to express it out very clearly, and all my edge case and everything are running very smooth. Okay, that's what test your solution means. Okay, now the pro technique for doing is that what I do, or what I instruct the candidate to do is that whatever code you have written, right, take an example and against most of the line or every main function logic, add a comment. Okay, current value at this step will be this, current value at this step will be this, so on and so forth, right? And you keep updating that comment every time in every iteration or whatever algorithm you have used. You basically keep on adding it, so eventually the final comment will have the result stored somewhere. Okay, so that's something which I recommend, or I personally also do while doing a dry run of the code. Okay, so testing your solution before even going into the interviewer is very important. It's necessary. It's going to help you a lot. Okay, that's manage your time. It's very important to manage your time. You can't spend, say, suppose two cases. Like, let's say suppose you're in interview, right? You have 60 minutes, right? And you are stuck at the brute force approach itself for 10-15 minutes, right? Not going to help, right? You can seek some help from interviewer if he is not giving anything. You can see, okay, I'm stuck at this point of time. I'm thinking this way, but I'm blocked on this. Interview will give you help, right? So it's very efficient that you basically utilize or manage your time out. That, for example, you can't spend 10 minutes in just requirement clarification, right? And you can't spend 10 15 minutes or 10 minutes to even think of a brute force solution, right? Hardly, normally what happens in any good company, there will be one good question with a follow-up question, right? Google, for example, follow a very fundamental thing. They will ask you normally they will ask you one question with a follow-up, right? So you're expected to code in 30 35 minutes and a follow-up question in 15-20 minutes. Okay, Meta, class, Facebook, they ask you two questions. Their expectation is that you're gonna solve that two questions. So media hard question, their expectation is you're gonna solve these two questions, in that 1 hour. So if you're stuck at one question, ask for, if you're not getting any help, nothing, try to get into another question. At least you will be able to solve one question, right? Similar that, similar thing is that, if you're going giving an online assessment, right? There are 5 questions. Don't get stuck into one simple problem, right? Try to figure it out which one is easier. Try to close that problem first. Okay. Read all the problems immediately, right? I mean, if you see first problem is simple, you are going, okay, read the other problems. And sometimes it's shuffled. It's not that the first problem will always be easy. So you have to figure it out which one is easier or which one is easier for you. And then basically you try to code that problem first. So eventually what happens, if say suppose in an interview, you have 60 minutes to solve 2 problems. You spend 40 minutes on the first problem, but realize it's very complex. Okay. So instead of spending all your time to one solution, move on to the second problem if you're stuck. This basically increases your chance of solving at least one problem completely, right? And sometimes happens in the OA, if you have solved one problem, right, you might be qualified for the on-site, and then you can prepare well, try to solve why I'm not able to solve the first problem and then get shit done, right? So managing your time is very crucial, very important. This is something which you should basically do. You should basically time box these things. It's very important. Okay. Okay, and another one thing which I see sometimes, again, what I've said till now is valid all now. Sometimes what happen is that, because of time constraint, you might be able to think a bit later, and then you just have 10 minutes, 15 minutes, right? You might not be able to basically, write a very neat and clean code, right? You might use some IJ variable because it comes naturally with the flow, right? So in that cases, when you have less time, try to prioritize completing the solution over the clean code, right? Because clean code comes in pictures when you have time, but if you don't have time and everything is rushed, right? And you can use IJ. So first try to write a code which is maybe not up to the standard of the variable naming and all those things, but write it, see it's working, and then you can change that variable name as well later. That's something which you can inculcate if you have less time. Okay, if you have ample time, you can start with the good variable names and all these things. But if you have very less time, you are not able to think of the variable name. Variable name thinking is also sometimes very tedious or difficult. So it's okay. You can park that. Once you have code running and working, then you basically change those variable names. You will be comfortable. You will be calm to think of the good variable names as well. Then practice mock interview, right? So it's something which I believe everyone should do, even though you are not giving interviews, everyone should do basically. Even though you are just preparing for interview, you should keep giving it, right? So yeah, I mean, there are different platforms like Exponent, Pramp, HackerRank, LeetCode, mock interviews, right? Or you can basically, ask your fellow members or any of your, wherever you are studying or wherever you are working, right? If you're or here itself, right? If you have 2 to 3 engineering friends, try to ask him her to take the mock interviews. Even I asked some of my friends to take my interviews. Even they asked me to take the mock interviews, right? That's one thing of doing it because you practice how exactly, it will simulate you a test environment for interview. That okay, in the interview, this is how exactly I have to do this. They will point or highlight the mistakes because you might be thinking that okay, whatever you're explaining is very clear, right? But the interviewer will or your friend will tell you, hey, this was not clear. They will give you the honest opinion to be very fair. Personally, what I also think sometimes is that what try to explain things by yourself. That means take a question, right, and think out loud. Whatever you are thinking, think out loud and basically record it into the phone. Then basically listen it by yourself and see is does it making sense if someone who is interviewing me will be able to understand or not. Okay, sometimes this also helps me. I tried it couple of times. It helps me by okay, this is something where I have to improve. I'm speaking something, but that is making sense just to me, not to them, then it doesn't make much sense, right? So uh, you have to basically understand those points as well. So practicing mock interview is very important. Okay. There are different lead code has platform Pramp and all these things are there. Then you can basically have your circle where you can ask your friends to take the mock interview. You can record it and you can listen it and judge yourself. One good technique will be, everyone is using AI, right? Chat GPT and different things, right? You can ask Chat GPT to act as an interviewer and you will throw it a problem that, hey, this is a problem. And you act as an interviewer and I'll be an interviewee. These are the something which I'm going to say. Tell me, is there any problem with it or not? Chat GPT will tell you what is the problem and how you can optimize it as well. So yeah, see, there are different solutions to that, right? Even AI tool can also help you to simulate a mock interview. Okay. So do practice mock interviews as much as possible before going into any interview. Try to have a mock, 3 or 4 mock interviews, right? So that you gain the confidence. You basically understand how to manage time as well. Without giving the mock interviews, you will be not able to understand how to manage time. Okay. So it's very important to basically practice mock interviews, whatever it is. Then stay calm and confident. This is the final tip which I'll basically sharing with you. Normally what happens is that in interview we basically get nervous. Okay, we get a question and we get nervous. It's completely okay, right? Normally interviews are skills, right? Skills are required, but it requires luck as well, right? Not every interview just go with the skills. There need to be have some luck there. Okay, so you know, always keep water, to be very, that always helps. Always keep water before starting the interview. Have water. If you are basically get tense, nothing is working out, have some water. Okay, just calm your mind, right? So it's not that your interviewer does not understand that you are nervous. Giving an example that one of my friend was taking an interview, I think in Amazon, a month back, right? So the candidate was not able to think. He was nervous. He was sweating, right? So the interviewer told the HR that he was a bit nervous. He was, not confident or sweating. Maybe, we can try to give him another chance as well, right? So, see, interviewer understands that you are nervous or something, right? So if you are calm, then, your mind will be very free and you will be able to think very clean. Okay. So, and don't try to say jargon words. Don't try to think random algorithms or random things, right? If you don't know it, admit it that that okay, this is something which I'm not aware, but I'm trying that. Okay, this is something how it might work. Okay, so don't say that this will work or this is something that if you don't know it, admit it that you don't know it. Okay, it's very simple. So, for example, in your low-level system design, right? Sometimes happen. Low-level system design is basically where you have been given a problem like design Zoom, design a true caller, like design a phone directory kind of a system where you have to write some sample classes, right? Functions and all these things, right? Um, if you don't know that okay how to use hash map, you're going to tell them, or if you don't know how to use encryption, you are going to tell them that hey, I'm not too familiar with this particular thing, but I would explore it in this particular way, or I would basically do it in this particular sense. Okay, so this is very important that okay, you should understand that what is your limitation. Keep calm. If you don't know it, tell upfront, okay, I'm not aware of it, right? Even sometimes I gave a DSA questions, right? uh, and the essay questions of graph, right? So can you say, hey, I know that this seems to be graph questions to me, but I'm not familiar right now for this particular thing, right? So I did change the question as well, right? Because I want them to solve. I just want to think. I just want to understand their problem solving approach. I'm not there just to get the answer. I'm there to think of how I am going to I'm there to basically understand how exactly this guy or girl is solving the problem, right? There to test the problem solving skills, not the learning skills. Okay, so that's why be upfront and calm and be confident whatever you are speaking. Don't fumble. That's the fundamental thing when interviewer will say, okay, this guy is not confident. Okay, so stay calm and confident. That's the fundamental. Okay, final thing. Okay, that DSA is important. You should basically focus on array, hash maps, stacks, queues, priority queues, linked list. This is the data structure you should do. Techniques like sliding window, two pointers, dynamic programming, and union find slash disjoint set union. It's very important to know. Common algorithms like binary search, sorting, DFS, BFS, right? Take these topics, understand these topics, solve 5, 10, 20, whatever quality questions you can solve by yourself. Initially, you are not able to solve 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay, but try to solve at least 5, 10 questions of each topics by yourself, at least medium level questions. If you go on lead code, search for medium level, try to solve 5, 10 questions against these topics. That will give you confidence that you have an understanding of these topics. Okay, that's the fundamental thing which you should do. Whatever it takes, you should do these things. If you follow all these things, you will have a complete set of package that you basically need before going into the interview, or while doing the interview. Ultimately, if you don't know these algorithms, nothing will work out, but eventually you will have to follow 5 out of 10 things. Okay, if they suppose it's just things are going very bad, everyone is doing very bad, so you five things you're doing well, you would be okay. But you have to solve the problem. That's something you do, but solve with the process. There is a process that you are showing your talent in front of someone. Okay, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing all these things, and interviewer will judge you on that problem solving skills, right? And not on your learning skills. So exactly you have remembered these things and all this. Okay, why? Because if interviewer sees that, oh, hey, he's able to solve this problem immediately, then he might be thinking that, okay, he might have solved this problem, so he will tweak the problem. And in tweaking, if you're able to solve it, then very good, right? You have justified the interview that I have thought of, I know exactly how I have solved it. If you have not, then it's a big red flag that he might have copied it from somewhere, or he has solved this problem and just remembered to do it and done, right? So following this process gives a confidence to the interviewer that he she has a good problem solving skills. Okay, that's basically very important. Okay. So finally, summing it up, understand, optimize, and test. Prioritize problem solving clarity over code perfection. Stay calm, think aloud, engage the interviewer. Engage means whatever you're thinking, nudge the interviewer that, okay, I hope this makes sense, right? And interviewer will say, so whatever you're thinking, you get a go ahead. Okay, is this making sense? Is this making sense to you, right? Anything that you felt, right? So get a nod from that interviewer that, okay, this making sense on it, right? But nothing can beat practice, right? Practice is most important. Practice, practice, practice. If you have a lot of practice, then you can easily follow these things by doing a mock interview, right? So practice, practice, and practice, which is very important. Open it for any platform, right? Try to solve, at least spend 1 or 2 hours daily and try to solve at least 2 or 3 questions, whatever it takes. Okay, that's very important. Okay. So with that, I'll basically sum up what exactly I feel is important, and I just created this slide. You see this very whiteboard kind of a slide. No, I don't like to create PPTs. So keep very whatever I have thought, I just summed as a bullet points, very simple, simple bullet points. Okay. So that's all for what I want to discuss, and it's open now for Q&A. You can ask any questions now.